Good afternoon and welcome to the second edition of the Hindustan Times Tourism Conclave. Last time round, we were there in person, sitting around the stage, speaking to the newsmakers, those who are in the tourism, all the stakeholders of the tourism industry, talking about tourism and all its potential. But this time round, just a year later, we're of course facing the grim prospect of COVID and its impact. Tourism industry is one of the key industries that has been majorly hit by the pandemic. And this perhaps makes our summit that much more important. It gives us something to talk about. How do we, in this time when we're dealing with rising number of cases, with deaths, how do we look at the prospect of tourism? How do we help it? How do we deal with this in the industry? Well, to talk about it, we are today joined by TP Rajesh and Vikram Kapoor. TP Rajesh is the MD and Commissioner of Tourism of Tamil Nadu, and Vikram Kapoor is the additional Chief Secretary of Tamil Nadu, and both of them are very key in us understanding, because if we look at the trajectory of the disease here in India, that if you followed it, you'll know that Tamil Nadu has been one of the worst hit states from the beginning. Just like Maharashtra, both Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu have been there. They were the worst from the beginning, and the cases have continued rising. Of late, however, in the last month, in the last few weeks, we've seen a kind of plateauing in Tamil Nadu. It has been a steady number of less than 6,000 cases daily, but it's nowhere do we see a dip till now. And so it's in that context, it's in that situation that I'm joined by these two guests to talk about, is it too soon to talk about tourists coming back? Remember, as we're speaking and discussing this right now, Europe, which had an unlockdown period like we were having, is now seeing a second wave. And so while they had welcomed tourists back, especially tourists from other parts of Europe, they are now dealing with a second wave. And so one of the questions to ask my guests is, when is it okay to welcome tourists back? When is it okay to go into that talk and that phase of unlockdown? So thank you to both my guests for joining us at the Hindustan Times Conclave. I hope you're both well and personally safe. And I know that work from home may not be a solution. I can see you both in your offices, to a few. So welcome.
Thank you, Sunitra.
Thank you.
You know, I want to start off by talking about, because as a news person, Tamil Nadu has been in the headlines from the word go. And it's something that policymakers like yourself perhaps have been quite wary about. It's a headline that you don't want to be a part of. And yet we've seen that in all our states. And while it's something that doctors and scientists have constantly said, look, there's no hesitation, there's no shame in the fact that if you have an area which is badly hit by the pandemic, there's no problem with that. All you have to do is you have to constantly trace, do contact tracing, have testing, and perhaps Tamil Nadu has been one of the states which has been doing a lot of testing as well. So that is the good thing. I want to start off by asking you, Mr. Kapoor, that, Tamil Nadu, when I was researching for this interview, I noticed that Tamil Nadu in 2019 was one of the most visited states. So from the most visited states in 2019, you go to one of the worst hit states by COVID, with one of the highest number of figures in the country. How do you cope with that?
Thank you, Sunitra. You're right. Tamil Nadu has historically been the most preferred tourist destination. And it's also a fact that during this COVID pandemic, we've been one of the worst affected. Of course, the numbers look alarming in the sense that, we have large number of infections, but then the good news is that the numbers are coming down. You yourself mentioned that we are now kind of plateauing off, and actually there is a perception that the disease is now starting to taper off. which is good news. I would like to also mention that the state government has taken enormous efforts for testing, tracing, and isolation, which is why our numbers are high. We do one of the highest testing in the country, and that has helped us in a way to check this disease. The state has fortunately one of the lowest mortality rates. Even in terms of positivity rate, we are low. And that's because we have been very open about testing, and we have gone ahead and tracked and isolated cases. So now that strategy is paying off, and we are well towards a marked reduction in the disease, which is why the state has now taken the step to open up tourism and the hospitality sector. It was one of the last sectors to open up. The temples were opened, and thereafter hotels as well as restaurants were opened up. It will take some time, we appreciate, for the tourists to come back. And meanwhile, what we've done is we've encouraged the sector to set in place certain standard operating procedures, certain protocols, hygiene and safety protocols, to make each and every hotel, each and every tourist site, each and every temple, to ensure that they are COVID kind of proof, COVID proof. Happy to say that industry is cooperating very well. However, it may take time for the general public, the tourists, to develop that confidence. We are seeing now some footfalls happening, but then for us, normally the tourist season, normally we see a peak happening during the winter months when the weather is generally very conducive for travel and when vacations are there. So we are now gearing up for that season and ensuring that we are all prepared to receive tourists. So yes, there has been a setback during the present pandemic, but then it's also been used as an opportunity to prepare ourselves better to ensure that the tourists are able to enjoy their holidays without any stress, without any fear of the pandemic.
Mr. Rajesh, would you take us through what was going through your mind when you saw first news of the pandemic? And at that time, I'm sure, like so many of us, one of the things about the pandemic has been that we know more about it every day. And I think it all seems so naive right now. But I remember as a reporter that it felt that, okay, we're going into lockdown. Hopefully by May or June, things are going to be better. We are now almost in October. And, yes, you said in Tamil Nadu, things are better. Where I am at in Delhi, our numbers haven't gone down yet. So I wanted to ask you to take us through, Mr. Rajesh, of how has it been as a tourism person. Tell us what it was to experience it, from May and going through the months. What was going through your mind, and how were you all planning for this?
And good regarding what was the situations in sometimes in the first week of April and what it is now, there are two different things also.
Yes.
So initially, people have a lot of hesitations, a lot of fear, and even the hospital authorities are also not well equipped also in handling this new pandemic, that is the COVID-19. And now hospitals have been put in, there is a system of standard operating procedure which is put in place also. People, a lot of awareness is there also, especially among the people from the south, awareness, social distancing, so what to do, what not to do when public gatherings are there. So government has also done a lot of measures also, again clamping down this the thing for another 2 months or 3 months was there also. Now it is slowly opening up also. And because of this effective contact tracings, isolations and other things, Tamil Nadu could able to see a lot of revival in the tourist sectors. Off late, my predictions, my forecast is that, I don't know how far I'm correct, but I think now people have started moving in also. Now the focus is more on the domestic tourism, and especially those who come from the neighboring states of Kerala and Karnataka. Tamil Nadu government has also issued safety protocols, safety norms and other things also. And this time the hotels have taken adequate measures. We had a constant engagement with the hoteliers, with other stakeholders also. sensitizing them about what they have to do it also, what the safety precautions they have to put it in place also. So we have literally given training also to them also, especially in other thing, and they have calculated the thing about the safety norms. Now the future would be whichever destination which is very safe for the tourists to visit. I think logically the tourists will prefer to travel in those destinations, and Tamil Nadu is also taking a lot of steps in that direction of making the destination safe and keeping all these system in place, especially the safety protocols in place also. And now we are promoting that thing in a bigger way also. So that
So,
is
Mr.
what.
Rajesh, Mr. Kapoor said earlier that you have slowly opened up. First things to open up were the temples, and then restaurants, hotels. We saw, these are basically national guidelines which locally states kind of tweaked and had their own kind of implementations. I wanted to ask you, because you would know as the tourism person, what have the numbers been like? Are people coming back? Are they going, or are you seeing people hesitant? People are not responding at all.
No, the point is that now this opening up of the interstate vehicular traffic, intrastate and interstate vehicular traffic is a very recent thing. Maybe this was happened only last month, so it has started opening up only the month end, this month the beginning. So people are now planning to go, but still some of the tourist spots have not been opened. Of course, the temples, they open the temples, and 200 to 250 people, they are daily, they are allowing them to visit the temples. But in tourist spots, they are ready to open the thing also. And we feel on one side, we feel these cases have also come down drastically. That is the point which I would like to reiterate. So now, as on yesterday, it was around some 5,344. And that mortality is also very less, is around some 60. And a lot of, as you know, that Tamil Nadu has been one of the progressive state which is having a large number of tourist footfalls also. And hope another 1 month time or 2 months time, once that all the relaxations are over, I think we'll start feeling a lot of movements of the domestic tourists also from the neighboring states first, then probably after that, then from the other parts of the country also. That is what we are forecasting the thing.
Mr. Kapoor, I wanted to get you in on that as well. This kind of provision of having about 250 people per day in a temple, it sounds minuscule. I mean, would be like a fraction of the usual daily visitors, right? And it sounds just by itself, that limitation sounds daunting when you think of encouraging people to unlock down.
It's not like, what Rajesh mentioned. I think he's taken a typical temple, but for larger temples, obviously the numbers are larger. We normally have a norm of a distance, that for per square meter area, how many people should be allowed. So depending on the size of the temple, the numbers vary. I won't say that this is acting as some kind of a restriction. People are cooperating. People themselves are wary that they have to maintain social distancing, and there are a lot of people who today, are voluntarily, trying to restrict their actual entry into temples. I'm happy to say that there has been no outbreak or any kind of cluster formation, even though the temples have been opened for quite some time now. Of course, temples represent one of our largest segment because, as you know, Tamil Nadu is known for its temples. Its tourism, one of the strongest pillars is its temple tourism. I'll expand it a bit and say that heritage has been our strong point. I think one of the most varied and oldest heritage that you can see in the country is in the state of Tamil Nadu, and there is enormous amount of interest by both international and domestic travelers to come and visit Tamil Nadu's heritage spots. So therefore, it's not just temples, but there are also associated sites, monuments, which people come, they throng to visit. Now, the good news is that most of these are outdoors, and therefore you can easily ensure social distance norms. And therefore, I'm confident that a lot of people will now actually go out and see, now that the weather will continuously improve with the winter rains coming in, I think there will be a lot of interest for people to travel to the off the beaten track and go to sites. Like if you just take a traditional site like Mahabalipuram, which is having as many as 3 world UNESCO sites, the shore temples, the rathas, and the five Pandavas, those sites. Now people want to visit those kind of sites because they are in the open, and you can easily ensure those kind of distancing, which sometimes may not be possible in a closed environment like a temple. But although a shore temple is a temple, but then it's more of a monument where you can actually have distancing and ensure the SOPs. So I'm not very worried about this. We can easily look at these numbers, allow more people as long as social distancing norms are followed. Tamil Nadu would like to impress upon the tourist community that we are safe as a destination, we welcome tourists, and we will take all measures to ensure that there is no outbreak of any disease, and people, tourists, they are welcomed in a safe manner.
Mr. Rajesh, are people coming back to restaurants? Because restaurants would have been open for some time now. What do you think of the trends? And, I know that there's a kind of mixed messaging that one gets now. We know that we have to kind of kickstart the economy, but there's also the dual messaging of also telling people, look, avoid going out if you have to. Also, stay in, practice social distancing. So how is it as the administrator that you encourage? For example, parts of in Britain, the government has said that we are going to encourage and help the restaurant business by telling people that half of the bill will be paid by the government. That's what UK did. I wonder if there are any big ideas, Mr. Rajesh, that the Tamil Nadu government has in order to help those sectors like restaurant sectors at a time when there is really mixed messaging for the regular person.
Probably the secretaries and one point I just want to say in that is that now people have started coming for the restaurants also. For the restaurant dining, people have started coming in. And it's one of the welcoming thing also, and people have been coming, and they maintain this social distancing and other thing, even the seating and other things also. A lot of things are there, whatever government of India, Minister of Tourism and Minister of Health and Family Welfare prescribed norms have been followed, and this is one of the welcoming sign. A lot of people are thronging restaurant part. The other aspect, I think, as Secretary is ECS.
Sunitra, if I may just come in here.
Yes, yes, Mr. Kapoor, sure.
See, there are no, there's no evidence to really show that people are kind of reluctant to come to restaurants and for monetary reasons, and that if you give discounts, there would be better footfalls. I don't think there is any evidence really or any such demands. We really don't want to give the message that only if discounts are offered, people would come there. I think, as Rajesh rightly mentioned, the concerns are larger, which is health concerns, and people are ordering online. They're getting door delivery done for eatables. So it's nothing to do with discounts or anything. I think it's just a fear factor. I think once gradually people see that restaurants are following the operating procedures and it's safe to actually dine, I think gradually people will come back, and I don't think there is any need to offer any discounts. Second, you must also realize that the state government, as in the case of other states, is under tremendous financial stress. Most of its resources have been going into fighting the pandemic, and as it is, the collections in terms of tax revenues and other dues is low because of lack of economic activity because of the shutdown. So there is a huge amount of financial stress on the state government, and I don't think it's very fair to expect the states to start now subsidizing, especially food and other kind of hospitality segments. However, the state is already working on giving a huge impetus to tourism. Of course, Rajesh will fill you in with all those details. I just want to mention that we've actually utilized this time to develop strategies. Tamil Nadu actually has launched an integrated tourism promotion project where as many as 295 destinations have been identified, grouped into 6 circuits, and master plans are being prepared for all these 295 destinations with a comprehensive area development approach. And the state is expected to invest in huge infrastructure development in these sites to the tune of nearly 2,000 crore. Most of this will come, we hope, through the private sector, where and also the Tamil Nadu Infrastructure Fund of the state government will also chip in. And we hope that these master plans will actually really unleash the real true potential of tourism in these destinations. So it's not that we've been sleeping over this time. We've actually used this time to develop these strategies and master plans for these sites. And now, as soon as the lockdown is fully kind of relaxed, you'll actually see works happening where these sites will be better prepared to receive tourists. We've also been utilizing this time to train our staff. In fact, Rajesh can give you details. We've been training our own in-house staff. We've also been requesting the hospitality industry partners to do likewise, to utilize this time to do spring cleaning, to train people, and be better prepared for the tourist season.
Of course, I wasn't suggesting that we do what Boris Johnson did, announce that kind of thing of, go out on us kind of thing. I was just saying that it was obviously one of those ideas that people are thinking out of the box now across the world in order to keep up, in order to tackle the pandemic and the kind of economic impact that it has unleashed across the world. I think that's something that all of us across the world are facing in every industry, and tourism is, of course, one of them. Mr. Rajesh, you want to fill in on what are the kind of out-of-the-box ideas that Tamil Nadu is doing now, focusing on? Because some of the traditional things that, for example, we know that, like you said, that you've opened up restaurants, you've opened up other things, but they are at limited capacity because of social distancing norms that we need to follow. So how do you then, what are the new ways of revenue generation?
And Tamil Nadu is one of the states in the country, I think, which has got a wide spectrum of tourist products. To take off ecotourism, we have opportunities. You have an adventure tourism, we have opportunities. We have around some 1,076 kilometers of coastline, and it has not been properly utilized. Now we are working out a strategy also in developing that thing. And temple tourism, yes, we have around more than some 40,000 patchwork temples are there. We have temples, more than 1,000 years old temples are also there. When you talk of UNESCO sites, we have 5 sites which is in Tamil Nadu, and 2 are the famous is the Mahabalipuram. The other things are lesser famous, not properly been projected to the international tourists. Is the Brideshwara temple in Tanjore and Rajaraja temple in Kangiyunda Cholapuram. And there are other temples. Temples are there. Heritage pilgrimage sites are there, and we have other things like this rural tourism also. We have greater potential for the rural tourism also, and we have greater potentials for other things like snorkeling, water sports. So Tamil Nadu has a wide spectrum of tourist products, and now we are preparing a strategy also how to unleash the real potential of Tamil Nadu and to project it also. And Tamil Nadu, through their changing the we are also planning to attract the international audience, because the Tamil Nadu is the one state which has got around 40 crore people, domestic tourists, visit the thing consistently for the past 5 years also. International tourists, we have around some 60 lakh people have visited Tamil Nadu in the year 2019. And I think this thing we are putting it, these are 295 sites, as my secretary was telling about it. So with the capital investments of that thing also, this is Hong Kong-based consultants, they're working on a strategy document also. So this period, we are preparing ourselves and reworking a strategy And we are incorporating this COVID and safety precautionary part also, and planning to project Tamil Nadu as a very safe and very secure place to visit for the international tourists as well as for the domestic tourists. So this has been going on. And we have also sensitized all our stakeholders in that thing also, the process. So all the tourism stakeholders have been taken on board. We had engagements with them. We discussed with them also what they're supposed to do. And a lot of things, activities happening also. Maybe once it, when the normalcy, because the tourism depends upon, for the international tourists, depends upon the opening up of the aviation sector. How probably maybe in another 2-3 months, once it is fully be opened up and lot of flights have started, Tamil Nadu is I think it will be able to capitalize on that thing also, capitalize on the tourist thing. And we have been doing a lot of thing also. New areas, innovative areas, we have been working on that also to make it a memorable and enjoyable tourist experience also. And especially the focus of the tourists is also getting changed over the period of time. So they want to stay in a village, just learn for themselves what was the village experience. So a lot of activities, they want to go back, especially the international tourists, and they want to write a story on that. So this sort of an immersive tourism or experiential tourism, we are trying to project it also. So we have in our basket wide spectrum, wide products, number of products also. So we are working towards that. Maybe in another month time or 2 months time or 3 months time, we may be able to roll out those things also. Then it will become, Tamil Nadu will attract more tourists, and it will both domestic as well as international thing also. And government of Tamil Nadu has been helping a lot also in this process. And we welcome the tourists also.
Sure. I just want to come now, focus on the other aspects. As you mentioned, you expect aspects like rail, aspects like flights to normalize over the next few months. Before I get to that, I just want to ask Mr. Kapoor that, what's been interesting about this whole thing has been initially when the lockdown started, it was the center talking about the lockdown guidelines, and they were followed by the state. But very soon what we realized, because of the vastness of our country and the fact that the disease and the trajectory of COVID-19 was location specific. So some areas initially were completely untouched, whereas others and cities especially became hotspots. Now, of course, they're spreading to other areas as well. So I wanted to just ask Mr. Kapoor that, one of the things has been a different response to initializing and starting train services and flight services. There has been a different response from all of the states. So where does Tamil Nadu stand? When do you think you would see? Because when it comes to flights, yes, they may not, there are, flights running to all destinations. Initially, states like West Bengal said, we don't need flights, it's too dangerous. I think people have realized now that flights with the circulation of air within the cabin, it is relatively safe. So I wanted to ask you, Mr. Kapoor, how do you all see things like flights being, stepped up, more flights being started, and trains? I think trains is something which impacts regular people much more. So many more people travel by trains, and I don't think we have regular train services. We are far from having regular train services. So what is your feedback on, and since it's such a crucial aspect of getting and helping the tourism industry, what is your view on restarting full train services?
I don't think I can really comment on when the full restoration of services will happen. Obviously, the state government is advised better from experts, health sector experts. It has its own mechanism of assessing, what is the right time to fully open up. It is also constantly in touch with the central government and the various central institutions. But it's also a fact that limited number of services are operational. I'm told nearly about 100 flights today operate in and out of Tamil Nadu. What feedback we've got is that even these flights are not being fully utilized. So it looks like, people are still reluctant to travel. So you may technically open up all the sectors, all flights, but if the footfalls are not there, if consumers don't patronize them, obviously airlines would operate them at a loss. So therefore, there has to be a fine balancing of that. So the state government is constantly looking at all the options. However, I again want to reiterate the fact that tourism is seasonal, leisure tourism. So typically, the tourism season, one is of course the summer season, which everybody lost. Then comes the winter season, when typically we have festivals like the Margali festival, and then you ended up with the Pongal festival, which is the statewide festival. That is the time we see a lot of people, especially from abroad, traveling into Tamil Nadu, because it also coincides with the Christmas holidays. So people tend to come, attend the music festivals, dance festivals, then they go to the native villages, to attend Pongal. So for us, it's normally that period of time when we see a lot of arrivals. So if by that time the flights are operated at full strength, maybe it will coincide with the tourist season. However, the other sector which patronizes these modes of transport are the business travelers. Now, the economy has been opened up considerably. Yes, there are now business travelers who are traveling, and they use flights, they use trains, they also patronize hotels. But what we are told is that I think because of this pandemic, there is a new normal, and now there is less of business travel because people feel comfortable to do business, like we are doing on a virtual platform. There are less people who are traveling for business. But as and when the economy keeps further opening up and there's more economic activity, we are confident that the business travelers will also come back. And a substantial portion of our hospitality sector actually relies upon business travel. So therefore, that is around the year, and I am sure in the coming months, this will revive. However, what we've been hearing from the tourism industry is that it may take up to 1 year for this entire industry to fully revive. And therefore, they have been requesting both the central and state government for certain concessions in terms of taxes, levies, or deferment of dues. These are all under examination by the appropriate government. Even our state government and the various agencies under it, they are looking at these demands. There's also an MSME package, I think, which the industry has requested the central government to apply in the case of the tourism and hospitality sector, so that their cash flow problems can be eased to that extent. So it has to be a multi-pronged strategy. While we look at the supply side solutions like these, we also need to keep on generating demand by giving right messaging, by doing publicity. In fact, Rajesh can even give details of what we are doing to create publicity during this time. So unless we all work together through various demand and supply measures, the revival of this industry will get delayed. And it's an industry which gives employment to lakhs of people. So therefore, it's very important that we get this industry back on track at the earliest. And we from the government are fully supportive of it. And we would like to also partner with all the stakeholders to see what steps can be taken.
Do you want to add to that, Mr. Rajesh, about travel starting and trains and all? Like, what do you think is when would you ideally like to see train travel start?
I think what Secretary says, I think that would be the time frame which we forecast.
Rajesh, would you like to just mention something about what work you're doing on creating digital platforms and other publicity material?
And we have been trying to revamp our websites and other things. We try to make more of a website, revamping the website, putting more of a content editing also, focusing on the international travelers, making it into 8 or 10 foreign languages. We are putting in the thing through the Asian Development Bank funded project. And we have been doing a lot of things on the social medias also. And we are all having a lot of plan. We want to make it more and more digital driven, digitally driven, a technology driven approach also. We are doing it also, making it more and more pervasive also. So that is the focus of our strategy now. And probably once it takes over, probably we'll try to find a lot of change in the way in which you are handling it, the way in which you are handling visitors, so that they feel more comfortable on that. So,
you were mentioning some new trends. For example, I think you talked about the fact that you're focusing a lot more now on domestic tourism. Do you think, what are the changes? What are the themes? I want to, we're nearing towards the end of the session now. I want you both to tell me, what do you see as the things that will change? Like you were saying, it'll take about a year to normalize. But are there ways, everyone's pointing out that the pandemic is one which may change us for good. Some things may never go back. We may see the new normal. So when we talk about the new normal in tourism, what is that new normal? Ms. Rajesh, you want to go first?
So the point is that, not only in the visa regime also, when you talk of a new normal, there will be need for changing our strategies and approaches and other thing also. So my feeling is that probably this has taught some lessons also. This COVID-19 pandemic has taught some lesson, not only for the globally, some orders have to change. And my feeling is that probably there will be a change in the focus, change in the strategies, change in that wherever they want to change the visa regime, other aspects. Probably there will be a lot of changes. There will be paradigm shift also from the travel and tourism sectors, what we are doing now, and it has to reset again also. So that may take maybe another 8 months or 1 year time also. So this paradigm shift will try to focus on a new global new order for the tourism sector as well as for the hospitality sector. So I think that order will have more of element of this health protocol and the standard operating procedure, as well as this image thematic based thing, like it's a safe place to travel. So this will have more element of that in the new global order. That is what I could be able to see that.
Mr. Kapoor?
Yeah, what I'm noticing is that this pandemic has actually made our economy more digitized. I think there will be more emphasis on digital platforms, whether to gather information or to see places. Like, just to give an example, traditionally people would visit tour operators' offices to plan out their holidays and destinations. But now I think increasingly people might use the digital medium to reach out. You could have video conferencing, and the tour operators may have to change their business model. Likewise, in the choice of travel destinations, I think there is bound to be a move towards destinations which are less crowded, off the beaten track. I think we are seeing people who may like to have personalized travel more than public travel. And when you travel, you may like to perhaps cover several destinations as against a single short destination, so that you can visit several places, but at the same time ensuring safe distancing as well as other safety protocol. So I think we need to design packages, we need to design destinations to cater to that kind of a need. We also envisage that new forms of tourism, like adventure tourism or ecotourism, rural tourism, these may find more favor than the beaten track of visiting only certain monuments or heritage sites or hotels. So I think we will see a marked change in the way people travel, the way people plan their destinations and their holidays. So
do you think
that's
they'll
one
be
way.
taking fewer holidays?
Sorry?
Do you think people will take fewer holidays?
On the contrary, I think people will now take, in fact, it's just a thought. I mean, it's very common for people abroad to take vacations. That concept of, taking vacation is not really still, been entertained very well in our country. But I think it's high time that we take vacation seriously. We should set apart a part of the year to compulsorily go on vacation. One, of course, it relaxes your body and mind, and two, it helps promote the tourism sector and revives the local economy. It would be a good idea that if the central government could come out with a scheme which would encourage people to travel. You mentioned about discounts. it may not be a bad idea to offer some discounts for people who travel. You already have leave travel concession schemes available to government employees and certain employees in the private sector. It may not be a bad idea to come out with an innovative scheme which will allow some kind of leave travel concession where part of the travel cost or the accommodation cost would be subsidized to incentivize people to plan vacations and take off with their families to off the beaten track, to go to unexplored destinations, so that those local economies can benefit, the tourism sector would thrive.
Well, this has been fascinating. Mr. Rajesh, Mr. Kapoor, thank you both so much. And I think that you have highlighted what kind of a challenge this is, and just how, while things look bleak, but amidst that, how it's forced all of us, and how governments are innovating, thinking out of the box, looking at different avenues, alternate avenues, at this very, very difficult and unprecedented time. Thank you both very much for speaking at the summit over here at the Conclave, Tourism Conclave. Thanks very much. And just a new note to our viewers, the session that was there at 4 o'clock, which would have had the IRCTC, which is the Railway Board session, that has been postponed now because of the unfortunate death of the Minister of State Railways. So we regret that. Keep tracking our page on Facebook and on our website to know when that session will be reslotted. So thanks very much. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Sunitra.
Thank you.
Thank you.